Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Tuesday, July 25th. It is 4 minutes past 10 p.m. We're going a little bit later. I had to actually rush back inside. I just got home a couple of minutes ago, as a matter of fact. I was at Hockey Etc. on Côte de Liesse. What was I doing at Hockey Etc.? Well, I had a chance to see your very own Nick Suzuki, your very own Caden Gooley, and more. And I'm going to get to that in just a couple of minutes. I'm going solo tonight. I want to talk to you about my experience. I want to talk to you about what I saw. And I'm sure you're going to be very interested in what I have to say. It is Marinaro. It is the Sick Podcast, weeknights at 10 p.m., live on YouTube, live on Facebook, live on Twitter. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by La Bittt Tibi, brewed in Quebec and a winner of a dozen international awards. La Bittt Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bittt Tibi, embrace your true nature. The Sick Podcast also brought to you by Playground, your premier gaming destination, open 24/7. Drinks are always free while you play. Over 600 machines, poker tournaments, cash games, daily promotions, free valet, and unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else, I ask? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground. The Sick Podcast also brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. Energy Transportation Group is driven to be different. So once again, welcome everyone. I hope you're doing well. And once again, we have a lot to talk about. So I have one eye on the YouTube chat right now as it's going on. Dan Desjardins says, Tony, what's the news today, Tony? Well, I'm going to tell you what the news is today. So I got a call from Zach Fucali. Zach, by the way, is one of my favorite people that I've had a chance to meet since I've been covering this beautiful game and since I've been in this beautiful business, which is sports media. Zach Fucali, of course, you can all recall, was a Montreal Canadiens draft pick. He had a lot of success with the Halifax Mooseheads in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He was with Halifax for 4 seasons. At the end of that last season, he ended up becoming a Quebec Rampart. Zach Fucali won the Memorial Cup with the Halifax Mooseheads. And then, once again, he was a second-round pick by the Canadiens, 36th overall in 2013. Very unfortunately, Zach did not start any games with the Montreal Canadiens. And he moved around here, there, and a little bit of everywhere. He had a great moment when with the Washington Capitals a couple of years ago, where he pitched a shutout. If memory serves me well, I believe the game was in Detroit, much to the delight of his parents, and especially his father, Jack, who really is a good Jack, and who was over the moon with that shutout. And Zach is coming off a great year because he helped lead Hershey in the American Hockey League to a Calder Cup, actually winning the final in Game 7 in overtime. It doesn't get more dramatic than that, folks. Pretty amazing, no, when you think about it. Well, Zach Fucali has already started planning his post-career like a lot of smart athletes do. And And I really love what he's doing. And I really love the company that he opened up along with his friends and partners, Oliver and Alex. And so in April of 2021, during COVID, and I believe it's April of 2021. Let me just, I don't want to make a mistake here. So let me just double check that information. I don't want to get it wrong because who knows? It could actually be April of 2020. Let me see. So in April of 2020, I'm glad I double checked. In April of 2020, during COVID, Zach and his buddies Oliver and Alex opened up a company called Living Sisu. Living Sisu, and Zach explained to me that Sisu is Finnish. It's a term in terms of basically never giving up, overcoming adversity, and determination, and all those things, obviously, that that we want to have in us, and we want other people to have in them as well. So it stands for a lot of things, but one of their main goals, one of their main objectives as a company, is that they want to be able to put together a platform to make sports accessible. And so tonight, they were able to do so. Now, Hockey Etc. is a beautiful establishment and facility on Côte d'Elias. And years and years ago, a lot of the players who were represented by Cortex Management, in which Kent Hughes, the Montreal Canadiens general manager, of course, was a partner at, they would train in the summer. And at one point, it became a little bit too much to handle. There was a lot of work involved. And they had asked Zach and his people if they wanted to basically take over the summer league. So they did so. And they founded basically the Living Sisu Hockey League, the LSHL. And what they did was they opened it up to pretty much everyone. So you don't have to be a client of Cortex Management. Basically, they tried to get, the cream of the crop, the most talented players who were spending their summers in Montreal, whether they were represented by Cortex or not. And they put together a pretty nice list. So Alex, who's one of the partners, lost his mom to pancreatic cancer. So what they decided to do was, hey, let's put together this league. Let's make it 3-on-3 hockey. Let's have rosters of pretty much 7, 2 shifts of 3, and a goalie. And I love the actual game, by the way. The format's amazing because it's 3-on-3. It's on a smaller ice rink. It's 3-on-3 hockey. And it kind of reminds me of basketball because basketball, you're always on the offense, right? It's going down one way, back the other, down one way, back the other. And in basketball, the main objective really is to, or the main strategy is to get the ball into the hands of probably the most skilled player, the most dominant player. And when you play 3-on-3, well, the skilled players and the dominant players, they're touching the puck a lot too. And there's not a lot of defense because once again, it's offense one way and then offense the other, offense one way and offense the other. So what they did is through the Living Sisu app, you're able to buy tickets if you wanted to watch these games for $10. You should have seen some of the fans camped outside next to where the parking lot was. And once the players were going to be parking, everyone wanted an autograph, a picture, and all that stuff. And the players, by the way, were very accessible. They were very, very good. I was really impressed. And it was nice to see, and I was happy to see it. And so the place was packed. The atmosphere was really, really amazing. This was week 3. I'm embarrassed to say that I wasn't there for week 1 or week 2. I thank Zach for contacting me and getting me out there. And I went there earlier this evening. And Zach asked me if I could provide color on their stream. So they streamed the 2 games that they had. One game started at around 5:15. They're 45-minute games, 3 periods of 15 minutes. If there's a penalty, you get a penalty shot. The puck is always in play. If it hits the mesh, it's in play, unless, of course, it goes out of play. But if it hits the mesh, it's in play. And one of the other rules you have to be aware about is the offside rule. So the puck carrier carries the puck into the offensive zone over the blue line. He can then come out of the zone. And as long as he stays within the blue line and the red line, you're still onside. So the red line basically at that point replaces the blue line. There was a lot of skill on display. It was absolutely amazing. The tickets sold for $10, which once again, you could have bought on the Living Sisu app. And all the money and the proceeds went towards pancreatic cancer, which obviously is a great, great cause. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up some of the lineups to you and show you who was playing in these games. So this was game number 1. So the team sponsored by Cristallin had Montreal Canadiens, Nick Suzuki, and Raphael Harvey-Pinard, and former Hab Zach Fucale as their goalie, along with Julien Gauthier, Samuel Bolduc, Jonathan Huberdeau, who arrived a little late, as a matter of fact. It was pretty funny because Huberdeau, once again, he arrived probably about, 10 minutes into the game or whatever. You just see him arriving there. I don't know where he was, but anyway, he was there, and I was told that he was replacing Daniel Sprong. And once again, Huberdeau, Letang, David Perron, and once again, Zach Fucale was your goalie for Team Cristallin. For Team Uptown Wealth Management, goalie is Frankie LaPena, and the players Anthony Beauvillier, Giovanni Fiore, Anthony Manta, Maxime Comtois, who's been talked about a lot because, of course, he has not received a qualifying offer from Anaheim, and he has shown some interest in joining the Montreal Canadiens. Mind you, we're hearing that they have not contacted his agent. That would be Marco Scandella, no S, so we can remove the S there, but that would be Marco Scandella, former Montreal Canadiens defenseman, Nick Brouillard, and Samuel Blais. And let's go to the other game, which was the 6 p.m. game. Okay, so that would be for Team Montreal asset. It would be Devin Levi was your goalie, and Pierre-Olivier Joseph, his brother Matthew Joseph, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Xavier Bourgault, Joe Veleno, Hab Caden Gooley, and Samuel Poulain. And for Team Accent Assurance, Alex Dubois was your goalie, Javier Gros, Dauphin, Nicolas Delaurier, Vincent Desharnais, who's a mammoth of a man, former Hab Jonathan Drouin, and Alexandre Carrier. So those were your rosters. And so I I'm going to give you my impressions. And by the way, I had a chance at the end of the game to meet one of the sponsors of the event of Accent Assurance, gentleman by the name of Ted, Accent Insurance Solutions. And we had a great talk. As a matter of fact, about everything that Zach is doing with Living Sisu and sports media and the Sick podcast. And it was pretty cool. I'm sure much to the delight of Agnello and Sammy, that during the intermissions, and there were very, very brief intermissions, and at the end of the game, of the first game, and at the end of the second game, the theme song of the Sick podcast was playing in the background, and that was pretty cool. That was really, really cool. So once again, Agnello and Sammy, if you can bring up the rosters so I can basically give you my observations. And I was, once again, I want to thank Zach, Oliver, and Alex for thinking of me in terms of providing commentary on the stream And, I think it's something that they've been doing for a little while here and trying out and having fun with. And I'm sure it's something that's going to get bigger and better as time goes on. And it was fun. It was fun. I'm not sure if it was my first time ever doing color for a hockey game. But if I wasn't my first, chances are I only did once or twice before. Like I don't remember ever doing color for a hockey game. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun for me. Nick Suzuki has to be. We'll keep the roster up there. Okay. Nick Suzuki has to be like the most generous hockey player in the world. He wasn't in the mood to shoot a lot tonight, and you can tell that he's very, very appreciated as a teammate, because if you play pro sports and especially hockey, and you get a player who's going to pass the puck to you all the time and always think about you before he thinks about himself, I think that's pretty cool. And so it wasn't Suzuki's best game because he wasn't playing a selfish game. He was playing really for everyone else tonight. And Raphael Harvey-Pinard, folks, he was flying. He looked to be in very good shape. He looked to have a lot of gas in the tank. He had a burst. He had pace. He was driving the net. He was going to the net. He looked great. Julien Gauthier has been with several teams in the National Hockey League. And he was a big-time goal scorer in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. This guy has very, very soft hands, and this guy had 40 goals in him. And he's trying to find that two-way game in the National Hockey League, but in a game of a format of 3-on-3, where you don't have to back check all that much, and there's room and space out there for you to do your thing. I thought he was one of the best players for Team Cristallin, if not the best tonight. I mean, the puck looked like a magnet on his stick. Samuel Bolduc and Jonathan Huberdeau, I thought, were a little bit less visible. Chris Letang is like a kid in a candy store. He loves to dangle with the puck, and he likes to move it, he likes to skate, and he's a really, really good passer. David Perron is that David Perron who had that scoring touch in junior hockey and still has it in the National Hockey League and still had it tonight. If he got a chance in close, he made you pay, for sure. In terms of all the goalies that played here tonight, well, when teams end up scoring 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 goals, and it's open, it's a 3-on-3 format, it's going to be really, really tough for a goalie to establish themselves because it's not easy at all. All right. Anthony Beauvillier, of course, is a former New York Islander who became, at one point, his name was thrown out there and rumored to be a Montreal Canadian, that there would be interest. He's a winger. And, of course, he went to Vancouver in the Bo Horvat deal. Giovanni Fiore was a player who impressed me because Giovanni Fiore is an undrafted player. He's never played in the National Hockey League. And he went out there and he was really, really good tonight. I believe he's been playing for a team, the Berlin. I think he's been playing for Berlin for the last 3 seasons or so. But what was cool about Giovanni Fiore is a 26-year-old left winger, 6 foot, about 200 pounds, play with 4 teams over 4 years in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Once again, an undrafted player. And the past 3 seasons with the Berlin Polar Bears. If you were there tonight at Hockey Center and you watched them play, you saw a really good player. And it just goes to show you and give you an appreciation of how good you have to be if you want to be in the National Hockey League. You got to be really, really good. And so back to some other players. Anthony Manta. Anthony Manta is a 28-year-old winger who, the size, the overall frame, the package, we're talking 6'5", over 230 pounds. Here's a guy as well who was a 50-plus goal scorer when he played with Val d'Or in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. But unfortunately, he hasn't been able to find his two-way game in the National Hockey League. He struggled with consistency. He had a difficult time with Pete Laviolette when he was with the Washington Capitals. and he's trying to find his game. Max Comtois. We brought him up on the podcast last night. George Larac talked about him because he's wondering if Max Comtois will have difficulty at one point finding a team because, of course, there was that investigation going on with Hockey Canada, which we still don't know the outcome of it. And we hope everything's going to be okay for Max Comtois. Big size, too. About 6'2", 200 pounds winger, second-round draft pick of Anaheim, 50th overall. And I had a chance to see him tonight. And look, to see a player play in a 3v3 format and then whether to decide whether or not the Montreal Canadiens should pursue or not, put it this way, he wasn't the player who most caught my attention. There was one that really did, and I'll get to him in a second. Marco Scandella, who's carved out a real nice career for himself with Minnesota, Buffalo, the Montreal Canadiens, St. Louis with the past 4 seasons, 6'3", 215-pound defenseman for the Montreal Boys, been in the National Hockey League since 2010. Scandella was there. Nick Brouillard, it was cool to see him because, you know what, we're talking about a left-handed defenseman who played for McGill for 3 seasons. He's been with the San Diego Gulls for the past 3 seasons. Samuel Blaise, a 27-year-old, 6'2" energy player, former New York Ranger who was traded to St. Louis as part of the Tarasenko deal. And Frankie Lepen, and once again, it was difficult for goalies tonight, but they all had their good moments for sure. Frankie Lepen is a 21-year-old goalie out of Laval who just completed his 4th year in the queue. And so we saw ourselves a very, very good hockey game there, a very good hockey game. And we saw a lot of goals, and we saw a lot of skill. And then after that game, we saw another game, and we'll bring up the roster for the other game. So, team, Accent, Assurance Solutions. Alexandre Carrier, Jonathan Drouin. Jonathan Drouin, if there was ever a player who was made to measure for 3-on-3 hockey, this was right down his alley. And Jonathan was good. He had some good passes. He had a couple of goals, one for sure that I saw, which was a quick shot. It looked like he was going in on a 2-on-0, and it looked like he was looking left, and then all of a sudden he shot very, very quickly, and he was able to beat Devin Levi. Vinny Desharnais, I was thinking about this, and I was wondering, is there a bigger player in the National Hockey League than Vinny Desharnais? And I don't know if there is. I mean, he's just absolutely huge. And if his name rings a bell, you'll remember that Vinny Desharnais was the last guy to tangle with Arbor Jacki. He was the last guy to tangle with Arbor Jacki, and that's when Jacki got hurt. So he's a big, big boy. Nicolas Deslauriers. Nicolas Deslauriers, this is an amazing thing to talk about tonight, Nick Deslauriers, and I'm going to tell you why. NHL enforcers, they have this reputation that they're goons, nothing but goons, this, that, and whatever. And I'm not going to tell you that there weren't some guys in the National Hockey League who were enforcers and were there because they knew how to fight and they didn't know how to do much else, because that was the case. There were some. This is not the case with Nick Deslauriers, folks. Nick Deslauriers can play hockey. As a matter of fact, it was pretty cool because Jack Fucali, Zach's dad, in the YouTube chat while the stream was going on, actually messaged that, typed out that Nick Deslauriers is one of his top 5 3-on-3 players to watch. He absolutely loves him watching him play. Nicolas Deslauriers has got good hands. And one day we can have a show that Nicolas Deslauriers has been removed from Montreal Canadiens for several years now. We can have a discussion that the Canadiens could use a guy like Nick Deslauriers on their team, on their 4th line as an energy guy. Some nights he plays, some nights he doesn't play. Take a look at who they have on their team. You have a guy like Suzuki you want to protect. You have a guy like Caulfield you want to protect. You have a guy like Doc you want to protect. Mind you, Doc can't take care of himself. You have a guy like Slavkovsky who's just 18 years old last year. You'd like to take care of him. You have some young players that are going to be, you're a young rebuilding team, and you want to have some guys to take care of them. And I know that it's kind of being like phased out of the game. But I have no problem when a guy can play. Nick Delorier can play hockey. And, you know, I got a lot of comments today, folks, by the way, regarding, if you remember last night, George Larac said that if he was in the National Hockey League right now, that he could take Milan Lucic, he could take Nick Delorier, he can take McDermott, and he can take Ryan Reeves, and he can beat them in a fight. Folks, he didn't say that the George Larac of 10 years ago would be the toughest guy in the National Hockey League right now. He said that right now, in 2023, he could step in, he could take on these guys, and he can beat them in a fight. Now, George is one of the toughest to ever play. He's one of the best fighters in the history of the National Hockey League. And he knows more about fighting. He forgot more about fighting in the National Hockey League than I'll ever know. 1,000%. But, I mean, I couldn't believe, because I thought that George said something yesterday that was supposed to be a joke. But then I realized he was serious. He was doubling down. He was tripling down. He was quadrupling down. George is a beast. We all know that. He's a huge frame. He's a big guy, and he's strong. I couldn't believe the amount of people that in the YouTube chat last night, and even today on social media, were telling me that George is right and George would. Like, folks, I completely disagree. With all due respect to George, I'm not talking behind his back here. I told him this yesterday. Tony, George would kill them all. He's an animal. Okay, fine. Folks, do you know what it takes to be an athlete nowadays, and how hard they train and the conditioning? George was a little mean to you, Tony, says 6 1/3. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He gave me his opinion. I gave him mine. There's no mean here, right? I wasn't trying to be mean with George when I told George that they would wipe the floor with him. This is the way I feel. I mean, I'm not saying it because I'm being mean. But I'm actually very surprised the amount of people that are getting back to me and telling me that they agree with everything George said, and that George went as far as saying that Dave Semenko, Chris Nyland, and Dave Brown would all be the toughest guy in the National Hockey League. I don't know if I misunderstood what he was saying, but I think he was saying that take them today at 60, 61, 62, 63, and 64, and that they still would be. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, I really disagree, but it was an interesting conversation. And as Bobby says, George can definitely hold on. There's no doubt about it. He could hold on, yes. But, once again, they're highly conditioned athletes, folks. The training that they go through right now, I don't know what George does on an everyday basis, right? Maybe he trains as hard as them. Maybe he trains harder than them. I don't know if that's the case. But still, there's a law of physics at one point. Hi, Tony. Are you going to that match that George suggested? Are you going to do the match? Yeah, quite possibly. George wants me to put together a soccer team. He wants to put together a soccer team, and the winner will give money to charity. I'd rather he put together a soccer team, I put together a soccer team, and we all give money to the charity. I think that's better than just a winning team giving money to charity. But anyway, it's something that we're going to discuss at one point. Let me get back to that roster. So anyway, I was just saying, Nick Delorier, you get a really good appreciation of how good even tough guys are. Laurent Dauphin is a former Montreal Canadian who I think at one point Dauphin scored like 3 goals in a row. Gru, Viel, and Zubo. But I really want to also focus in on a couple of players on the other team. Devin Levi was in goal, and of course, he's a West Island boy who's a former draft pick of the Florida Panthers, and he was involved in the, I think it was the, in a trade with the, Which one was it? I think it was the Reinhardt deal. To Buffalo, and Devon Levi was going to Florida, and Devon Levi was going to the Buffalo Sabres and play well for them down the stretch. Samuel Poulin, his dad, Patrick Poulin. Patrick Poulin used to be a former Montreal Canadian. Caden Gooley, look good. Folks, Caden Gooley, much like Nick Suzuki, has chosen to stay here all summer and play a lot of golf and a lot of hockey. They're involved in a lot of golf events, charity events, pickup games, playing with their buddies, and a lot of hockey. So they chose to spend their summers here in Montreal, which is pretty cool. Joe Veleno, of course, is a Montreal boy who, in the year Kotkaniemi was drafted, and Kotkaniemi was the first center in that draft to go at 3rd overall. Arizona drafted the second centerman, I believe, at 5th overall, I believe. Veleno went 30th that year. Veleno had a good year, all things considering, with the Detroit Red Wings. Didn't put up huge numbers, probably never will in the National Hockey League. When all is said and done, maybe he'll just end up being a full-time third-line guy. Nothing wrong with that. But I really liked the way Veleno looked tonight. Once again, I thought he was flying. I thought that he looked really, really comfortable. And I think Veleno is going to take a couple of steps forward this year. Xavier Bourgault played extremely well. Pierre-Luc Dubois, folks, once again, it's just pick up hockey. There's nothing to write home about here. It's not the end of the world. You're not winning the Stanley Cup if you win, and you're not losing the Stanley Cup if you lose. The frame is there, size, height, reach, but it was not his best night. Pierre-Olivier Joseph on the back end, of course, with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Matthew Joseph of the Ottawa Senators. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. Every now and then you see a player and you say, you know what? I don't know if they're available, but if they are, that's a player that I'd like to have on my team. Matthew Joseph of the Ottawa Senators. Let's put things in context here, okay? He scored 3 goals in 56 games last year. That's not lighting it up, okay? But Matthew Joseph, who's never put up big numbers in the National Hockey League, the most was 12 and 13 goals with Tampa Bay. But this guy had over 30 goals in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League on a couple of occasions, 33 one year in 58 games, and 36 another year in 54 games. Matthew Joseph tonight was unbelievable. He was absolutely flying. He was incredible. Folks, he was incredible. He was on. Like, he came to play. He was really, really flying. And it was really nice to see. Lots of people felt the same way about Tony versus Snake, but self-belief can go a long way. What are we talking about here? Me versus Snake. Are we talking about me versus Snake in a race because Snake challenged me to a race? Folks, I'm going to tell you something. Snake pretty much challenged me to a race or talked about it anyway. Or maybe I took him up on it. I don't know the way it went down. I will race him. I don't know which day I'm going to race him, but I'm going to race him. And when I do, I'm going to beat him. I'm telling you right now. So I know you're looking at me, Tony, you're carrying extra weight, this, that, whatever. You don't move all that fast. Well, I don't move as fast as I used to. But I'm very fast for my size. I'm going to tell you that right now. We just have to up the cardio a little bit, because if it's going to be a 100-meter race, like, I know I would beat him in a 20 or 30 or 40 meters. That I would feel very comfortable and very confident with. But you know what? Get my cardio up, and I'll take him in 100 meters. Try my best. A shout out, by the way, to Murphy Clinic, an aesthetic clinic specializing in medical aesthetic care. They offer permanent laser hair removal, as well as a wide range of treatments for skin problems such as acne, rosacea, fine lines, and more. They currently have 2 clinics, one located in Montreal, Shop Angus, and the second on the North Shore in Terrebonne. They're also opening soon in Quebec City. Visit murphyclinic.ca or on Instagram at Murphy Clinic. All right, okay, so folks, once again, the LSHL, the Living Sisu Hockey League. Zach, Oliver, and Alex, Living Sisu company, they founded in April of 2020. They've taken over the summer league now for the past couple of seasons. It's a summer league, which is organized by them. The best players are training, game situations, great conditions, and once again, proceeds going to Pancreatic Cancer Canada Foundation. Uniting for a cause, raising awareness, making sports accessible, summer training, and Living Sisu is a sport and wellness platform that offers limitless, all-in-one access to live the Sisu lifestyle, resources, exclusive offers, and events powered by athletes, professionals in their field, and renowned companies. It's a platform designed to help users live the Sisu lifestyle, which is all about pushing yourself to be the best version of yourself, both on and off the field. And they have sponsors, which we talked to you about. And those sponsors enable them to make the league possible, cover the costs of facilities, staff, materials, everything they need to offer that professional experience to the fans and the players. The tickets, once again, you can buy through the app. The proceeds go to Pancreatic Canada Cancer. They provide streaming, pictures, stats to make the event accessible to a wider audience, and they're really trying to do something special with this. And speaking of pictures, let's see if we can see one of Caden Gooley. We have the picture of Caden Gooley. Yes, no, yes, no. We're trying to get it. It doesn't look like we have it right now. All right, okay. Boop. We'll probably try and bring it up a little bit later if we can. All right. 10:40. I can answer some of your questions. I also want to get to this. I want to get to Patrice Bergeron. Earlier today, Patrice Bergeron announced his retirement from the National Hockey League. Bergeron was drafted in the very popular 2003 draft. He was a second-round pick, 45th overall. It's an NHL entry draft that the Montreal Canadiens and every other team that passed up on him would rather forget. The Canadiens should be especially embarrassed because the Canadiens that year had the 10th pick overall, and they drafted Andrei Kostitsyn, and they had the 40th pick overall. 40th. And they went to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, the way Boston did with pick 45. And at pick 40, the Montreal Canadiens drafted Corey Urquhart of the Montreal Rocket. And Corey Urquhart never played a game in the National Hockey League. There's not one player in round one who didn't play a game in the National Hockey League. They all did. And in round two, there were a couple of players who never played a game in the National Hockey League, probably about 6 or 7. One of which was Corey Urquhart. So the Canadiens went to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League and ended up drafting a player who never played a game in the National Hockey League. Patrice Bergeron, can we bring up his hockey DB? Can we bring it up? Look at Patrice Bergeron's hockey DB. Patrice Bergeron's hockey DB. It's amazing. – 2003-2004 season. As an 18-year-old, he starts in the National Hockey League. 39 points in 71 games. Then 73 points. 77 points in 10 games. 39 and 64, 52 and 73, 57 and 80, 64 and 81. Then there's the lockout year. After that, it's 32 and 42, 62 points in 80 games, 55 and 81, 68 and 80, 53 and 79, 63 and 64, 79 and 65, 56 and 61, 48 points in 54 games, 65 and 73, 58 in 78. When all is said and done, 1,294 regular season games, 427 goals, 613 assists, 1,040 points. In 170 playoff games, 50 goals, 78 assists, 128 points. 3 times in the Stanley Cup final, 1 Stanley Cup win in 2011, 6 Frank J. Selke trophies as the best defensive centerman in the entire National Hockey League. Add to that a King Clancy Memorial Trophy and a Mark Messier NHL Leadership Award. This guy, in the best draft or one of the top 3 drafts in the history of National Hockey League drafts, was the best player from that draft that had Marc-Andre Fleury, Eric Stahl, Nathan Horton, Thomas Vanek, Jeff Carter, Dustin Brown, Brent Seabrook, Zach Parise, Ryan Getzlaf, Brent Burns, Ryan Kessler, Mike Richards, Corey Perry. In round 2, Louis Eriksson. The list goes on and on. Patrice Bergeron was the best player from that draft. Patrice Bergeron is one of the best players in the history of the National Hockey League. When we talk about a 200-foot game, most complete players, Sidney Crosby's name is probably the first name mentioned. And if it's not, it's Patrice Bergeron. The Boston Bruins were so lucky to have this guy. We were so blessed to watch this guy play. The ultimate pro, the consummate professional, a great teammate, a great leader, a great person on and off the ice. Always carried himself extremely well. Represented the Boston Bruins great. I love this player. I really, really love this player. At one point, I remember he had started in the National Hockey League, and then he was going the year after. I think he was going to play for Canada at the World Juniors. And I saw Claude Julien. I said to Claude, I said, Claude, is it a good idea that he's going to play for the World Juniors? I mean, sometimes I look at it and I say, you know what? You have nothing to gain by going when you've already played in the National Hockey League. And he looked at me and he said, Tony, he's a great player. He'll go there and he'll be great. He's a great player. And Claude was right. Great player. And I don't know about that Selke trophy, but I think they probably got to rename it the Patrice Bergeron Award trophy, something like that. And the Boston Bruins got to honor this guy in some way, shape, or first of all, first ballot Hall of Famer. He's going to the Hall of Fame, retire his jersey, and keep him in the organization. Ambassador for sure. If he wants to be director of hockey operation, whatever he wants to be, can you imagine having a guy like that around in your organization for the longest time? And on Boston radio, to think there are some in Boston who have called Patrice Bergeron overrated. Overrated. We're talking about one of the best two-way players to ever play the game. We're talking about arguably the best defensive forward to ever play the game, or someone who's definitely in that discussion. 6 Selkies. And during his time with the Bruins, 3 Stanley Cup finals, a Stanley Cup win. And on Boston radio, there's some that call him overrated. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should be ashamed of themselves. Patrice Bergeron is anything but overrated. As a matter of fact, probably even underrated, if that's possible. Have a great retirement, Patrice. Let's give him an award, man. Let's give him an award. Hey, I talked to you about Playground. Putin, $6 every Wednesday as of 5 p.m. By the way, Wednesday mornings, they have breakfasts that are an unbelievable value, especially for what you get, the quality and the quantity. It's incredible. Tony Bergeron says, Boston radio are shock jocks. Not surprised. Yeah, they're not only shock jocks, they're pretty smart ones because they make over $1 million a year in Boston. Over $1 million, by the way. That's what happens. You're in Boston. You do sports radio in Boston. You do sports radio in New York. You do sports radio in Philadelphia. You do sports radio in Chicago. You do sports radio in Los Angeles. You're making 7 figures a year. You do sports radio in Montreal. Your buddy who works in an office in customer service is making more than you. But anyway, I digress. That's another story for another day. There's always podcasts. That's a different story. All right. Okay. On that note, you have any other questions? Anybody have any questions? Because you know what? It's been a long day, long afternoon, and a long night. But man, I'm so happy I went out there, and the season is not over, eh, folks? The women play as well in the LSHL league. So the women play once a week. The men play once a week. And once again, it's $10 through the Living Sisu app, with the proceeds going towards Pancreatic Cancer Society. So it's a great cause. It's a great event. It's great hockey to watch. It really is. It was a lot of fun. And so special thanks to Zach Fucali, Oliver, Alex. Had a great chat with Zach at the end of the night, and also with Ted Harmon from Accent Insurance Solutions. Had a really, really great chat. Every now and then, you meet somebody for the very first time, but you feel like you've known them forever. That was one of those nights. And, I've had a couple of conversations with Zach too, but it's not like I've had 100 conversations, probably about 5 or 6, but same exact feeling with Zach. Feel like I've known him for the longest time. Once again, one of the nicest people I've had a chance to meet since I've been covering this game, Zach Fucali. And so happy that he was able to win the Calder Cup and pushing for Zach and pulling for Zach to, get himself a full-time gig in the National Hockey League. But once again, 32 teams in the NHL, folks. There's 64 goalies. And those 64, they're the best in the world at what they do. So it's a tough nut to crack. And just to be involved in that conversation, and it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. So he's had a great career. Tony, don't forget to mention I don't quite get this text from Joel Kravitz. I think he made a spelling mistake. Chris says, is it mere that the Habs acquire many defensemen this offseason? No, the Canadians, the cupboards are full, folks. At all positions, the cupboards are full. Kelly says, thanks, Tony, for going live after your busy day. Kelly, you're very welcome. I just thought, you know what? I thought it was, if I was going to be there for the 5:15 game and be there for the 6 o'clock game, and then after, I just thought, you know what? The best thing to do is to come on and talk about it. Tony, maybe a word of encouragement for the callers who wait near the phones. Okay. Who's waiting near the phones? We're not taking any calls tonight unless you want to call. I mean, folks, if you ever want to call, you let us know. I'll tell Agnello, we'll open up the phone lines, and we'll get to your call. You can ask me anything. Ask me anything. Why not? Oh, by the way, I think somebody wrote that. Now I understand. I understand Joel's message. Rocky Wirtz, chairman of the Chicago Blackhawks, has passed away earlier today at 70 years of age. So our thoughts and prayers obviously go out to him and his family. Now I understand Joel's message. Spray your hair, Tony, from Kook 69. Here we go. This is what you want. This is what you got. Why don't we do this? Take away this. Hold on, I can't see all that well with those. Is there a show tomorrow, Tony? Yes, of course there's a show. Why wouldn't there be a show? Of course there's a show. We bring you a show weeknights at 10 p.m. Of course there's a show. Habs finish around 26-30 again this year, Tony. The Habs will not finish in the bottom 5. They'll do better than that. All right. For Charlie Cabrera at Optimal Stretch Clinic, 4710 St. Ambroise. Specializes in fascial stretch therapy, him and Sam. So good at what they do. They basically started uncranking me. And as he started uncranking me, I could hear everything open up like... I made a wrong noise, but anyway, you get my drift. How do you do uncranking? I don't know, but it's definitely not like that. But anyway, my buddy Dom over at Sophia's, where I love a good pizza there, he actually watches the podcast all the time. And he heard me talking about Charlie Cabrera over at Optimal Stretch Clinic. So he sent me a picture yesterday and said, look, my new friend. And he was there. He was at Optimal Stretch Clinic. So if you have a chance to go see him, go see him. Tony, how many points improvement do you see the Habs this year? We've got plenty of time to talk about that. But once again, the Habs will not finish in the bottom 5. I predict better than that. All right. So that's it. Here we are, about 50 plus minutes in. On this Tuesday, July 25th, I want to thank everyone for watching on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter Live. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. If you're going to listen to us, if you're watching, actually like it, share it with your friends. Comment SICK right now, SICK, SICK, SICK. And if you're going to listen to us on Google, Apple, or Spotify, leave us a 5-star review if you can. It's our way of feeling the love. Tony, I'd love to hear some of your old conversations with Ted Teven. Well, I guess we're going to have to pull out the audio cassettes for that one. This one from Joel Kravitz. Mark Meringer says, are you back? I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. At BPM at the end of August, or is it September? Yes, as a matter of fact, BPM Spar will go back to some of the people who have been off this summer. Will be back starting on Monday, August the 28th. And I would imagine I will be back, and I look forward to it. Tony, hope you can come back next Tuesday. Stefano, who I would imagine was at the event there at Hockey, etc. tonight. And Stefano, I enjoyed myself very, very much. And you know what? I promise that tonight was not the only time I was going to take it in. Hi, Tony. My pleasure for playing your theme song, Stefano, the scorekeeper. Oh, Stefano, thank you very much. I'm sure I thought it was pretty cool that you were playing the theme song. I thought that was very, very cool. And I thought that was very, very nice of you. Ted Harmon, really enjoyed chatting this evening. Tony, completely agree that it's great hockey. Yes, and Ted, and good for you and Accent Insurance Solutions, as well as all the other sponsors of the event, for being able to cover some of those costs so that, the event is pulled off. Because you know what? You need the support of the sponsors and the partners, and you were there for them, and good for you. Habs should sign George only for the preseason games to see how he does against tough guys. This coming in from Joe Manella. Come on, Joe. Let's be honest here. Sick in the third says snake is toast. I don't know about that, but I usually do well when I'm challenged. So I look forward to that for sure. 1,000%. All right. Any other? Hey, listen, if you want to ask questions, go for it. Think Doc is getting 50 points this year? Yes, I think he's getting more. Nikki, I appreciate the fact you're asking me a soccer question, but we have a soccer podcast for that. Let's keep this to Habs. Because if we want to talk about soccer, we could talk about Lionel Messi, who scored a brace tonight, by the way, in the Leagues Cup. Bobby says, how's the diet? It's good. I mean, I was a lot stricter before, but it's okay. Did you soup up your Vespa? No, I did not. Do you recommend I should? I mean, what's the difference? If you soup it up, it's going to go faster, but it's a 50cc, and you don't require a license for it. Even if I soup it up, if I'm not going to be able to drive it more than 50 because I'm going to end up getting a ticket, then what's the use of souping it up? Bobby says Messi, wow. Peter says, is Hoffman done as a ab? Well, he definitely will be at the end of the season. Tony, bring the snake up again. My pleasure to listen to you and him talk. This coming in from Frankie Leonidis. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I watch or listen to the podcast the next day, do you still get the view or is it live only? No, we still get the view. Asking because I listen usually next day at work. No, we still get the view. We still get the view. Thanks, everyone, for watching tonight. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for participating. And thanks for the team over at Living Sisu for having me. And working color with Marco, who was at play-by-play. That was a lot of fun. We were starting down the stretch there. We were starting to have a little bit of chemistry and get into a groove. And I think we enjoyed ourselves. I know I did. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching once again. It is the Sick Podcast, weeknights at 10 p.m. Special thanks to all of our partners, Energy Transportation Group, Murphy Clinic, La Bittt at Tibi, and Playground, as well as Matrix, of course. Discover a club quality workout in the comfort of your own home. Matrix Home Fitness. Have a great night. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. It is the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBit.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.